Go ahead. Hi, everybody. My name is Pasi Sahlberg. I'm from Harvard Graduate School of Education, and this is the first ever educational change sauna. And I come from Finland, where sauna has a particular role in our culture. It's a place where you normally go after a heavy day of serious work. And in sauna, you sit down with your friends and you can discuss freely what matters most in the day and in your life. And so we are here to talk about education and educational change issues. This afternoon we spoke about high-performing education systems, what makes some education systems more successful, and how do we measure that? How do we know about this? What counts as an evidence? And so we're going to have a short moment. I have two of my students here. I'm very happy about that. And they may have some questions for me. I may have some questions for them. And we hope that you all use the social media, Twitter, and join us tonight and every Wednesday night until the end of April. So could you introduce yourselves?
Hi there, my name is Lisa Chin. I'm currently a student studying in the International Education Policy Program of my Masters. I'm originally from Australia and my background is as a teacher and as a former lawyer.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Hi, my name is Kiran Sivaraja. I am from Malaysia, and previously, before coming to Harvard, I was a management consultant, and I set up Teach for Malaysia, which is a network partner of Teach for All, modeled after the Teach for America program here.
Okay, let's go to the what we did this afternoon. So anything that bothers your mind?
So I thought we did a very interesting activity in class today, and Pasi got the class to rank the top 5 global organizations that influence education reform. And it was very interesting to see the responses that the class came up with. And we were divided into 7 groups, and I think the first thing we realized was that every single group on top of the list ranked OECD as the most influential organization. So I felt that was telling as to how influential the PISA results is in influencing policymakers and determining the direction of countries. I mean, for Malaysia, for example, the PISA results has created a political storm because we've been ranked slightly lower than Vietnam, and we've never been ranked below Vietnam in any index. So it's sort of created a whole issue politically.
What was unexpected also after that experience was Pasi did his own ranking, and what I found quite troubling actually was Pearson, which is a Murdoch-owned company, ranked in his top 3.
Are you saying this because you're Australian?
Perhaps, although we can safely say he's American now.
Right, right.
But from my perspective as a teacher, I'm always interested in seeing how teachers and students' voices can be heard more in the global education reform movement. And the top 3 that you named, the OECD, the UN, the World Bank, and Pearson, perhaps do not have students and teachers' interests best in mind.
Yeah.
Do you see this as worrying or a trend, or?
Yeah, I think this is interesting. You know, if anybody there, if you try to do the same exercise, what are the 5 most influential, powerful global players in the field of education reform? It's very difficult to find anybody who is really a kind of a education institution, somebody who would be doing education as a kind of a daily work or daily operation. We are seeing now, I argued this afternoon that we are seeing players like Pearson and McKinsey that are corporations doing many other things and having a kind of a financial profit making as a primary purpose of their work, to enter this field where previously we have had things like UNICEF, that is a children's organization within the UN, and UNESCO, that is has a strong part in playing education. So now we have institutions that are not really doing education, but having a significant role in influencing not only the global thinking about education, but increasingly the national policy making and framing and redesigning the national education reforms. So that's something that I think people need to be mindful with. That this landscape has really changed during the last 10 years. And now, if you want to be a global player in education, you need to be able to play with these players and understand what they're doing. So that's why That's why I brought McKinsey and Pearson to the same list with the OECD and World Bank and UN organizations as a few. But what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I was particularly concerned, well, surprised rather, that the UN was ranked number 5 in your list, because in my group discussion, we ranked the UN and its agencies as number 2. The UNHCR, for example, does a lot of work in education for refugees, UNICEF, of course. So I was wondering what your thoughts were behind the UN being number 5, given that, I mean, I know they don't have as much money as probably Pearson or some of the other corporate organizations, but their impact on education reform, to me, seemed to be far-reaching globally.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you know if you ask me to create a list of organizations that are doing important things, that have an important message to send, I think there's no question about it that the UN has probably the closest to that, to be the number 1 institution in this. They care about children and equity and everybody's education, the poor and the developing part of the world. But this question was more about who have an influence, and unfortunately, I think UN in many ways has lost its impact in this kind of a game of very rapidly changing game of global educational reform movement, where solutions are asked much more faster paced than before. Governments and ministers, they want to hear it now, right now, what to do, and often these large organizations are not able to serve those questions and clients to the same pace. So that's why my list looks as it is.
Pasi, what do you think a few of the groups we mentioned more disruptive and innovative approaches to global education reform? For example, Khan Academy came up, and Google, even the Teach for All network. Where do you see those trends going?
And the both of us are part of Teach for All. So.
Yeah, no, I know. I appreciate that. I think this was really a kind of a learning moment for me, because I never thought that the Google, for example, could be seen as a global player in education policy and reform. This probably indicates that, firstly, that I'm getting old, and secondly, that maybe these social entrepreneurs and groups like Teach for All and some others are having a kind of a hold on some of these things. I think what we are still seeing in, for example, the Khan Academy and also Teach for All and some other initiatives, that they are not yet kind of a truly global influential players. They are having a kind of a role in a global education and service in different parts of the world. But when we ask the question that when countries are setting their educational goals and reforms, where they are looking at the inspiration and ideas and influence, and that's why I see that these things are Teach for All and Khan Academy are probably more serving the grassroots needs and development in the level of the school or district or something like this, and not yet in the level of the whole education system.
I think one of the thoughts, Pasi, that my group had that we probably didn't have time to elaborate on during class was the role of higher education institutions in influencing education reform movements.
Right.
I mean, here we are sitting in probably the top university in the world, and it's funny how none of the groups listed Harvard as one of the organizations that has the ability to influence education reform. So my question is really, what role do you see universities playing, and professors within these universities like yourself, playing in influencing education reform?
I think there are many influential individuals, and they actually, the EdWeek recently created a rank list of the 100 most influential American scholars, where you can see Diane Ravitch being number 2 and Linda Darling-Hammond being the most influential American scholar. So obviously this is something that we're going to see, and we also need to pay attention to. And many of these individuals, they have a global influence as well. They are Linda is working throughout the world. She's in Australia right now, and they have an influence. But again, I think that many of these influence, unless they come with the huge amounts of money that can finance projects and really put forward changes, the individual influence will remain at the kind of some policy elements and items. But it's a great question. I think we should be probably looking at more also the scholars, the university researchers and professors, and this university and others as well. So how did you, what is your takeaway from the overall class? Did you get any new insights on educational change, or how to think about this?
Well, I think, as you said, we have to be mindful of the trends. We're kind of at this cusp of this wave of education reform that's coming in, and we're trying to ride it and see what's going to happen. So, yeah, it's an exciting time to be involved in this.
It is indeed.
Yeah, I definitely share similar sentiments. I think 5 or 10 years ago, education reform, as you said, Pasi, during the class, looked very different. And I think 10 years ago, the program that we are in, or 20 years ago, international education policy did not exist at the Ed School. So I'm very excited to be a part of this field. I was wondering what your thoughts were on what these 5 organizations would look like in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, and whether technology organizations would actually play a greater role.
Yeah. This may be something that we are going to see anyway. The world of learning is changing very, very fast. Whether we want it or not, the digital learning tools and means of learning are becoming more and more widely available, and certainly those who are providing those services will have a role to play. But I still think that we need to primarily look at these things from the education point of view. I wouldn't like to see the world in the future a place where non-educational institutions or non-educational experts would be driving the policy formation and educational reforms in the world. I think we need to make sure that we have global players, global institutions where education is really kind of a fundamental know-how of these institutions. That's unless we do that, I think we're going to see things in our schools and school systems that are not necessarily good for all of the children. But as you said, that the world is changing very quickly in this respect, and it remains to be seen. Working and studying in a university like this is a wonderful thing because you have access to these ideas and knowledge every day. Anything else you would like to add?
Well, nothing else except that we're really looking forward to the rest of the semester, and hopefully the weather gets better.
Yeah, well, for me, this is a perfect weather to be inside because this is what we're going to do. But as I said, we're going to meet here every Wednesday at the same time. We're going to bring different students every time, different ideas, different insights. If you have your own thoughts, your own questions, most of my students are in the Twitter. Keep your tweets and ideas coming. We try to respond them and create truly a global communication and community to improve education throughout the world. So thank you very much.